Hi, I'm Tim Unwin, and for my sins I'm chairing ICTD 2010.
So you intended this conference to be different from previous ICT4D conferences. How did you intend that? How different? In what terms?
Well, I think traditionally the ICTD series of conferences in Berkeley, Bangalore and Doha were very much sort of peer-reviewed papers, and that was the core focus of the conference. And yeah, in many ways that's fantastic, but maybe I'm just too old of an academic that I enjoy reading papers rather than just listening to other people reading them out loud to an audience. And if you're going to spend all the money in bringing people together from far and wide, and the environmental issues, I think one has to maximise the time for face-to-face contact. I'm sure you've heard me say, actually smell people and touch them and sort of, be with them physically. And so we wanted to try and find ways that we could use these days to add to the excellence of the peer review papers by bringing people together to do fun things and actually to create as many alternative ways of interacting. So sessions, open sessions, having the online conference and bringing people together, having discussed things online previously, and thanks ever so much for all your help in doing that, which is great. And also to make it more participatory and bottom up, and the idea was we create a place and do as well as we can to make it as hospitable and open, and then invite people to contribute the sessions that they want to do. So we had two streams really in the sessions. One was again very paralleling the papers and the posters, but inviting open submissions. And then I've always believed in partnerships and actually working in partnership with different organisations who wanted to be part of this event, and how could they do that. And again, you guys have done a fantastic job as part of one of our partners, but say with UNCTAD or FAO or the others, that they can use this as an environment. They can bring people, they can run a session, get more interactions. And so that was a second stream of sessions, so we had our sort of partner sessions.
So you try to address researchers and practitioners at the same time? As
well, so that's absolutely right, but actually academic researchers, civil society organisations, bilateral donors, governments. I try to get our government to contribute, but financial cutbacks, so I'm very pleased that we have the Finnish government and the German government working, and the Swedish government as well.
And obviously it was successful. As Kantaro said, you were overwhelmed how many people registered. You did not plan for so many accommodation spaces, you had to get new ones. So why do you think is that so many people are now interested in ICT4D and ICTD?
I like to think it's just because we're brilliant and excellent, and I've got so many friends who want to be part of it, but I'm not actually sure it is necessarily reflecting an increase in interest in ICT4D. It might be. But I think if we're actually getting so many different partners involved and bring them together all in one place, it's actually people wanting to come to their sessions. So I think part of it is a quirk of the way we've organised the conference, again, with partners. But to me that's one of the fantastic things about it, because you get different groups of people who want to use this place to interact, and then they can then meet other people. If it is there's an increase in interest in ICT4D, that's even better, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Another question, I saw you tried to check as many workshops as possible yesterday. You went through them and saw if everything is alright. At some you stayed a while. What do you take away from these workshops and interactive sessions yesterday on Monday?
If I have a disappointment, it's actually that some of the sessions that we've tried to make most participatory and open and bottom up have paradoxically been perhaps the least well attended. So that was a bit sad. We wanted to have, we had this idea of creating an open space when anybody who wants to can get up for 5 minutes and talk, just so that we were as inclusive as possible. It would have been nice perhaps if people had been more active there. As ever in a conference, the sessions differ. I had some fantastic debate. I mean, for me, just that buzz that's around the whole place yesterday was really pleasing. I guess another thing that I was personally particularly keen to do was to give postgraduates a big profile. So actually making them, giving them the space of the auditorium, which is the main part of it, and being able to give so many scholarships to young researchers to come. That was terribly important to Dorothea and me, and so I enjoyed the postgraduate sessions. The spider reception was quite good at the end of the day. It was nice to have a glass of sparkling wine. But the effervescence of their discussions was reflected in the wine.
Okay, great. And for the coming days, I mean, 1.5 days is over. Are you looking forward especially to something, or are you lacking something which you are expecting on the next days to come?
I'm looking forward to the party on Wednesday night, and then the end on so party on Wednesday night and the end on Thursday. No, the thing that matters most to me, I mean, I'm not actually able to join in all the sessions I like to, so what matters most to me is that everyone who comes has a fantastic time. And I think the team who's run the conference that's been all that we've cared about. It would be lovely to go to my own conference as a participant, but that's not an option. I think the quality of papers has been very good. I was sitting in some of the paper sessions this morning. I'm very pleased with that. I hope people enjoyed the sort of introductory party and the stumble in last night, because our collective is about really good research in the interests of sort of poor and marginalised people, but doing it collegially and having fun. And so Ugo's social programme in the evenings is very important, and an integral part of the way in which we want to share the way we do things here at Royal Holloway with the wider community. But to be perfectly honest, Thursday evening after the closing plenary, I will be able to relax. But what do I enjoy? I think the closing plenary is going to be very important because we've got some of the bilateral donors together, and actually they will have heard everything that's happened here. So it'll be the next stage and how we move that forward. And I really meant what I said in the opening session, that this conference will not have been successful unless everybody who comes will do something differently afterwards. And so that's a message I will be reinforcing.
Good.
I found a hook here. You just said that you kind of want to show people what the way you're doing it here at Royal Holloway, but we're doing ICT4D and we're dealing with totally different areas in the world actually, and their cultures there. So how does it go together? How do you justify that it takes place in London?
Okay, so I wasn't quite clear. How do I justify the conferences taking place in London? I've looked on some of the tweets, and they've been saying, well, we ought to have it in Africa. And the conference has been in Berkeley, Bangalore, Doha. Anybody could have put in a bid to host it. I don't actually know last year if anyone from Africa did put in a bid. I know people from Latin America are interested in putting in a bid. Our bid was to make it as participatory as possible, and we've given over 100 scholarships to bring people, vast numbers of whom are actually from Africa, here. I don't think the advisory board for ICTD have any vested interest in that other than making it a great conference and putting their trust. So we'll have to wait and see on Wednesday who gets it next year. I can't possibly comment on that. But there are actually interesting logistical issues, that it's easier to get to London than it is from West Africa to East Africa in many instances. And I remember years ago when I was running sort of other conferences, particularly with Africa, we had a huge debate. We modelled it mathematically to find the cheapest location, and the cheapest location for an African conference was London, and here. So we ran it here, and we got a lot of grief about it because we're not in Africa. So there are. It's a difficult question. I'm very involved in e-learning Africa, which is always goes from a different African country to another, and so we're great supporters of that. But we've tried in our little way. Having got the conference, we're the hosts. It would be a bit bizarre for us to actually uproot and go and have it in Zambia. So if the Zambians want it, I'm sure they could run a great conference. And they wouldn't have Royal Holloway, they wouldn't have our collective as the people with our particular style. But wait for Fatang on Wednesday evening, and the world will come to Royal Holloway, and you can all party there.
Fatang, yeah. after party, is it? Yeah. Okay, so personally, as one of the leading figures in the ICT4D movement, what is your personal intent for this research area to go in which direction, or just your own research interest?
Wow, huge question. I think what some of the people in the opening plenary said yesterday, or maybe it was just my interpretation of what they said, was very important. I think, and hearing some of the papers, I think in the field it still tends to be too intellectually led, too top-down, too supply-driven. And I've always been about beginning with the needs of the poorest and the most marginalised. Of course I accept that ICT4D has within it those interested in economic growth and expanding markets and all the rest. Fine, I have no problems with that, but you personalised it, and thank you for doing that. that my interests are fundamentally with working with some of the poorest and most marginalised communities, and I'll define that in a minute. But far too much ICT4D research has been done on people, so ICT research done on Africans or on people in India, rather than with. So the first thing I'd say is I'd love us to be doing much more work with, and listening to the needs of the poorest and most marginalised. And for me, I think those groups of people with disabilities. I mean, it wasn't coincidence, but just behind me here, some Braille. How many people can read Braille? And it's fantastic that we've had at least somebody visually impaired coming to the conference. But you've probably heard me say before, but ICTs can transform the lives of people with more disabilities, vastly more than they can those of us who have fewer disabilities. We've all got disabilities. Let's make ICTs actually benefit those who have most, and most disabilities. So that's one area, and the other is, maybe just because I'm getting old, but young people are the future of the world, and in so many parts of the world I've seen so many kids living and working on the streets, people out of school. Now ICTs can actually transform their lives phenomenally as well. So what I personally am committed to do in the foreseeable future is actually to try and work with those communities. I'm really lucky to have a sabbatical next term, and I'm going to China, and working with some of the poor communities both around Beijing but also in some of the western parts of China, which are rural areas which are very poor, and just actually learning from them. I want to learn. And then say, well, they're trying to find ways in which different sorts of ICTs, mobiles, computers, radio, television even, can actually be used to help even out some of the inequalities in our world.